Welcome back to a new video, and on this occasion is the UAD POLYMAX. Everything on this guide is in chapters. If you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. If you like this, please like and subscribe. This channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks, you can. Check the links in the description. You have PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Now, the first time that you use this unit, you play something and you can hear the panning going from left to right every time that you play something. So each voice is panned in some fashion. And this is the control that you have right here, the voice panning. If you go all the way to 0, it means that when you play, there is no panning at all. Number 1, it means that it's going to pan the voices, but it's not super aggressive. It's like 50% panning. If you go to the number 2, it means that it will hard pan the one voice to the left and maybe the other one to the right. And we can really hear this, especially if you're using headphones. It makes sense that we start with the oscillators. Both oscillators are completely the same. The shape control lets you select the waveform, but how this works is that you can transition from one waveform to the next one. Saw, then we go to a square. And from here to here, you can do or adjust the width of the pulse. And this is one of the reasons why you have the mod so close to the shape. And it's because if you want to do pulse width modulation, you need to provide a little bit of modulation and use the LFO or the envelope to do pulse width modulation, of course. Now you can maybe go to the control on your keyboard, click it, and it will go and put the knob or whatever value on the default position. We are going to talk about this mod section because it's super important for the synthesizer. Each oscillator can do coarse or fine. You can go up to 2 octaves up, or you can go up to 2 octaves down. And on top of that, you can go to fine and just fine tune in cents, small amounts. When you want to use the oscillators, you need to go through the mix section. Here is where you provide the volume, where you're tuning them on or off. If you want the oscillator number 2, you just need to bring a little bit of volume. And you also have a noise generator. If I go up on the noise, I get the noise, and you have pink noise, which is not so bright, and then you have white noise, which is bright. For this synthesizer, modulation is highly important, and this is why on each section you have some kind of modulation control. The main purpose of the mods, like I said before, is to modulate this control, not just to do pulse width modulation. So if I go up, the light will let you know the intensity of the LFO. So if I go here and just play something, this shape control is doing something like this, because we are using an LFO that uses a triangle. You have different, of course, rates. You can go slower, you can go faster. We're gonna talk about this later. You can sync it to your DAW tempo, and also you can use your classic waveforms for modulation, like triangle, then ramp down, then ramp up. Then you have a square, which is an on and off type of deal, and then you have SNH, which is sample and hold. And if you don't know sample and hold, it's a way of random. You can also use an envelope to modulate. If I do something slow, it will use this envelope to do the modulation. What I want to do, if I go up, it means that we go positive, it will take this shape and the keys is going to go up, and at some point it's going to go down when we play a key. If I go into negative values, it's going to do just the opposite. Instead of going up, it's going to go down. Now this is going down right here. And if I release it, it goes back. This is the first kind of modulation that you get on the synthesizer with the oscillators, modulating the shape. The second type of modulation is going to be the pitch mod, which is going to modulate the pitch, and it works the same way. You can use the LFO or you can use an envelope. So if I provide something, the pitch goes up. We're modulating the pitch using the envelope right here. And if you go positives, it's going to go up in pitch, or it's going to go down in pitch. With the oscillators, we get the classic waveforms and we can create classic sounds, but we also have FM and we also have a sync. You see it right here, the sync. In the case of FM, it says FM and then oscillator 2. And this is because the oscillator 2 is in charge of modulating the oscillator number 1. This is how FM works. So if you're just using one single oscillator, like maybe the number 1, whatever is that you do on the oscillator 2 will affect the oscillator number 1. In this case, I'm just going to stand maybe on a tri-saw and I'm going to play one single key. As I go up on FM, you're going to start getting super aggressive sounds. But remember, the oscillator 2 is the one doing the modulation, so changing the shape, it will have it modulate, it will modulate the one in different fashion. If I even do mod, you're going to be getting it. If you want to be less aggressive, just can do a tiny little bit. You know what? I'm going to be putting a chorus so we can have just a better sound, nicer sound. Let me go back right here. We can modulate it by manually. And remember that since we are doing FM, if you change the pitch, it will affect the oscillator 1 as well. Now, when you're standing on 1, moving the FM and even changing the chorus, you can get really gnarly sounds. It's always musical, it will sound good. This is one of the cool things about this synthesizer. It's very easy to fine-tune and get a usable sound. And what do you know, you have the mod right here, just like you have on the oscillators. If you are using mod, maybe I can use the LFO, and what this does is going to modulate this control. If I go up on the LFO, on the mod, is using the LFO to move this control up and down. And remember that the LFO decides the shape. So yeah, very cool sounds. The FM just takes it to, a different dimension. Then on the other side, you have sync. And it works like, it's supposed to, doing sync. Now, usually on traditional synthesis, maybe the oscillator number 2, it's the slave and 1 is the master. But it means that, on this case, if you want to do sync, the oscillator X is going to use the other oscillator X to do the syncing. In the case of this synthesizer, it doesn't happen that way. Right here, the oscillator number 2, I'm going to go maybe just to the number 2 and just play something. The sync is going to be synced to an internal silence oscillator. So you still get this sync sound without using the other oscillator to do the sync. And again, you have the mod, so if you're using just the oscillator number 2, and maybe you're using an envelope, I'm gonna do a little bit of attack, maybe a little bit of decay, and I'll go up in the mod. This is just modulating this control. And we get that classic sync sound. I'm gonna go more aggressively. If I use a little flow, right, so you get cool sounds. Now, still, remember that the oscillator number 2 is in charge of doing the FM to the oscillator number 1. So whatever it is that we do with the sync will affect the FM if you're doing some FM on the oscillator 1. And now, notice that the sound gets more complex. And I'm going to go down. Yeah, it can do, the not traditional sounds. It can do a lot more. Right, let's talk about the filter and back to an initial patch. And if I play something, maybe I'm going to be doing a little bit of oscillator number 2. If I do some cutoff, it's going to cut the high frequencies. This is how it works. Now, the cool thing is that you get to choose between 2 and 4 pole. 4 pole being more aggressive and 2 pole being less aggressive. And then as a very common control, you get your resonance control, which is a bump right there at the breakpoint. If I go all the way up on the resonance, you get that resonance peak. 2 poles. then you have the modes. You can do 2 and 4 pole, which is something that is always appreciated, that you get a more versatile filter. But you can do low pass, which is cutting the high frequencies. Then you can do high pass, which is the opposite, just cutting the low frequencies. And then you have a band pass, which is, you can hear with the resonance, is right here. We're cutting high and lows. We have a peak right there. And then you have the notch, which is the opposite. Alright, I'm going to be standing on the most common one, which is the low pass. Then you have the envelope, LFO, and key tracking, and all of them are in charge to modulate the cutoff. Now, we don't get anything out of the box. This is something pretty standard with any synthesizer. If you want to modulate the cutoff, you can go up on the LFO, and the LFO will just modulate the cutoff in the same fashion that it does on the shape, and on the FM, and on the sync. You can go to positives or negatives. And then you have the envelope, which is pretty much the same thing. This is just a very common control. It's using this envelope to do the modulation. And you can, of course, go into negatives. Same as the key, you get your standard key tracking. Now, if you don't know what this is, this will adjust the cutoff frequency depending on which keys we are playing. Let me give you an example. I'm going to go all the way to not key tracking. If I'm standing right here and I play a higher key, we can see on the spectrum that we are cutting a lot of the higher frequencies, so we can almost not hear them. If I go up on the key tracking, now we can hear them. So this will listen to what keys we are playing, the frequency, and it will adjust the cutoff accordingly so we can hear the higher frequencies. No key tracking, the cutoff doesn't care which keys we are playing. With key tracking, the cutoff cares. And you can easily see when you go to resonance. If I go to no key tracking, when I'm playing different keys, maybe I'm going to be doing a little bit more cutoff. When I play keys, the resonance is pretty much always on the same spot. But if I go up on the key tracking, the resonance moves to whatever key I'm playing. Alright, so we need to talk about the LFO and the envelope and the amplifier. If you already know how an ADSR works, well, I'm not going to teach you anything new. And if you already know how an LFO works, again, not going to teach you anything new. So you can move forward to the next section. But maybe this is your first synthesizer and you're just a little bit confused. So I'm going to give you a one-on-one on what an LFO is and how an envelope works. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator. So this is what it is an oscillator, just like the ones we have right here. And this one, it's constantly going. The only difference is that when we play an oscillator, when we play a key, I'm going to go maybe up on the cutoff. When we play a key, we are just getting a waveform and it's super fast. This is why we hear a tone. But the low frequency oscillator, it goes very low. It goes very slow. So when we take something like maybe the pitch, maybe I'm going to go over here to pitch and use that LFO instruction, is going to move it accordingly to whatever rate you have right here. If I wanted to maybe use a different oscillator, I can go all the way up and notice it moves super fast. So this LFO, it's almost working like an oscillator. And we are using it to do modulation in the pitch. But usually, maybe we use it at some other rates. In the case of this LFO, you can sync it to your DAW tempo, and you can use other types of waveforms. In this case, it's a saw, then a ramp up, square, and sample and hold, which is random. And that's it for the LFO. It's just a very simple LFO. Now, then we need to go to the envelopes. One thing that you need to know is the amplifier will control how the volume goes out of the synthesizer. And then the envelope, this one, it's being used to modulate the cutoff with the envelope. And it's also being used as a modulation source. So this is the one we need to change if we want to modulate. And it uses a very common ADSR. Also, your velocity will just scale the times for your ADSR. So if you go all the way down on the velocity, it doesn't care about, the velocity of your keys. If you go all the way up, it's going to be much responsive to your velocity. Right, so I'm standing on an init patch, and I'm going to give you a tiny 101 on ADSR. Now, make sure that all the values are way down, and the ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. The attack and the decay are time-based controls, the sustain is just a level, and the release is time, just like the A and the D. So if I play a key right now, we get a tiny little blip. So we get almost nothing, and it's because of all of this just super short. So the attack, remember, is a time-based control. It's going to decide how long it will take when I play a key to go from full silence to full amplitude. If I go up and put it around there, I'm going to play a key in 3, 2, 1. The sound is going to go up, but it takes a little bit of time, right? It's smoothly going up. If I make it slower, it's more noticeable. It slowly goes up, and at some point, it's going to reach the maximum amplitude and it's going to die. And notice I'm still holding the C4, I'm still holding a key, but the sound dies. So the attack decides how long, how smoothly goes the volume up, but not how it goes down. This is the job of the decay. If I provide a little bit of decay, it means that the sound will slowly go up a certain amount of time, and then it's going to decay, it's going to go down after the decay, it's done. The attack is done. So now it changes to decay and it's slowly going down. On this synthesizer, which is really cool, it gives you the lights telling you when it's going to the next stage. So if I play the attack, we start on the attack, it's almost getting to full amplitude, and when it's done, it's going to start decaying and the volume goes down. And it could be very small, very slow, or very fast. This case is super slow. It's just slowly going down. And at some point, it's just going to die. If I do make it faster, I'm going to play, it's going to go up. Maybe I'm going to make everything faster. It's going to go up. It's going to reach right here, and then it's going to go down. Now, I'm still holding a key. The decay doesn't decide what happens when we are holding. It only decides when it goes down. So this is the job of the sustain. If I'm holding a key, I want for that sound to sustain at some point. So if I move it, notice that the sound goes up. And I'm still holding the key. So the sustain decides where is going to stay after the decay. If I play it again, it's going to go slowly up. Then it's going to decay. And when we are sustaining, it's going to get stuck on the sustain stage. If I go low, it's going to be very low. And if I go up, it's going to stay up. One thing that you need to know is that if you go all the way up on the sustain, when you play a key, it's going to bypass the decay and go straight to the sustain. So there's no decay. And it makes sense. Now, what's going to happen with the release? The release is a time-based knob just like this one's. I'm going to be playing the key. It's going to go up, going to go to the decay stage, and then it's going to go and sustain. But I'm still holding the key. The release is what is going to happen when I release the keys. If I release it in 3, 2, 1, the sound dies instantly. In this case, what I want for the sound to smoothly go out. So that's going to be the release. If I provide some release, the sound is going to go up to the attack, then it's going to go to the decay, then it's going to sustain, and I'm still holding the key. And when I release the keys, instead of dying immediately, it's just going to take a little bit of time. There we go. Now I'm going to go all the way down. I have these values. I'm going to go all the way down on the release. If I play some keys, as soon as I release the keys, the sound dies, and we get this type of sound. But if I provide a little bit of release, now it's going to sound completely different. This has 8 voices, and all the voices will release very smoothly. So you get a completely different sound. Alright, so that's the envelopes 101. Hopefully now you get it. But it takes a little bit of practice, right? It just takes a little bit of practice. One thing that you can do to learn about the envelopes and how they work is just go through the presets and check what the envelope it's doing. Alright, so let's keep moving forward. We need to talk about the Unison, the Legato, and the Glide. On the synth, you don't have unlimited voices. You only have 8. Now, Unison works only in mono. So if you want some Unison on, you need to turn it on. If I play a key, nothing happens because right now the Unison is off. If you want some Unison, you need to go up. And how this works, and for now I'm just gonna go all the way up on the sustain, is that it's going to take the voices, available voices, and it's going to stack the voices on top of each other, and it's going to detune them. As you go up on the unison, it's going to detune them more and more and more, and you will get this large type of sound. As you go down, it's going to detune them less, so you get a much more closer sound, let's say. Now remember that unison only works in mono, so you cannot make a chord one single key at a time. Now when you're in mono, I'm going to turn off the unison. You have the legato. You cannot turn on the legato when mono is off. I'm going to provide a little bit of attack, a little bit of sustain, and a little bit of decay. If I play a key, it's going to sound like that, right? So if I go to legato and I keep it off, when I play a new key, notice that every time that I play a new key, and I'm still holding a key, and this only works when you hold the key, it's always restarting the envelope. So this is how non-legato works. If I enable legato, I play a key, and I'm going to be playing a new key. But notice, I'm still holding one, but the envelope will just never restarts. And this is because I'm holding a key. And this is how legato works. If you're holding a key, envelopes will not restart. If legato is off, every time that you're playing a key, it doesn't matter if you're holding a key, it will always restart the envelope. And alright, so all of this I'm showing you right now are synth basics. Once you learn them, you can use them on whatever synthesizer. Now, then you have your glide control. How glide works is that it's going to glide from one note to the next one. So if I play a key, we get that one. If I play a new key, it's going to glide or slide to that frequency. This is how glide works. Now, depending on the settings, if I go all the way up, it's going to take a long time to go from point A to point B. It's a long time. If I play a higher key, it's going to travel all the way there. If I go down, it's going to be much faster. Let me just do no attack. It's going to be a little bit more obvious. Is that we have that tiny little glide, but it's just very, very short. More glide. And alright, so that's how the glide works. Then you have your wheels, and this is talking about the wheels that you get on a MIDI controller or maybe on a synthesizer. You have your bend wheel, and you have your pitch bend, and then you have your mod wheel. In the case of the bend, you can go all the way up to 12 semitones up, or you can go to 12 semitones down, right? This is how the wheel works. Now with the mod wheel, you have the mod wheel right here. So you can use it with your mouse. You don't need a controller for this. So this will decide how much up in the mod wheel and how much down. If you go all the way down, it's going to do nothing. How aggressive it is, if I go all the way up and go up on the mod wheel, it's going to be super aggressive. I'm going to maybe go all the way up in the sustain because it's going down. Right? And what it does by default is going to be a vibrato, which is pitch modulation. Now, if you think about this, who is deciding how fast the vibrato is? This decides how aggressive it is, but this doesn't decide the speed. So it's the LFO, the main LFO. If I go down on the LFO, it's going to use it to do the vibrato. Alright, so let me go down on the mod wheel, and I'm gonna maybe put myself right here. Now I'm gonna go to the cutoff. Now the cutoff, in this case, if I go up on the mod wheel, what it does is tying this control to modulate the cutoff up or down. Now we do it manually. We are not using the LFO in this case. So the amount is going to decide how aggressive the mod wheel is. I can go all the way down on the cutoff or all the way down with my mod wheel. Again, all of these are just very standard controls. Then you have your arpeggiator, and this is a very simple arpeggiator. I'm going to turn it on, and if I play a chord, it's just going to do it. Then you have your rate. You can go the subdivisions or your resolution, 4, 8, 16s, 30 seconds. I'm going to go back to 16s. One thing you can do, just like any other arpeggiator, you can repeat whatever it is that you're playing. In this case, I'm just playing one single chord, triad, but it's repeating it on this octave and on the next octave. This is why it's the octave range. If I go to the next one, it's going to repeat the same triad 2 octaves up, right? The octave I'm currently now, the next one, and the next one. Then you have your modes. It's going to be up, which is it's doing right now. Then it can be down, up and down. And then you have the R, which is a random. And again, it's a very simple arpeggiator. Now then you have the mod effects. You have a phaser, flanger, and chorus. And the effects are very simple, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to turn it on right here. And when you play something, it takes you to a phaser where you can change the rate and the depth. If I go to a flanger, same thing with the flanger. And if you go to a chorus, same thing with the chorus. Now, one thing that it's not happening right here, and it's a complaint, maybe UAD is listening, when you set something on a phaser, and maybe you want to check, maybe I'm going to go all the way up in these controls, right? But you know, I want to check how it sounds with the chorus. Well, if I go to a chorus, I can't do it again, but maybe I decide that the phaser sounded better. When I go back, it's always resetting the controls back to default, which is something that I don't like. What I would love to do is to do something right here, maybe go to a different effect, but when I go back, I want for the synthesizer to remember what I did when I was on phaser. And this is something that you can easily do, I guess. Hopefully, UAD is listening. If I turn this off, then you go to the space effects, and it's talking about, you know, delay and reverb. And when you go to the different effects, they have different controls. So we have the same, I want to say problems, just the way it works. You have a delay where you can sync, and you have your time and your feedback. You have a spring. If I go to Hall, you get a Hall. Again, it's just very simple to understand. My only complaint is the same thing. If I go to a delay, and this is even more annoying, if I go to the delay and I select the perfect delay, right? Let's say that this is my perfect delay. I change it and then go back, and it's back to default, and I have to set it up again. Okay, so, but yeah, this is how it works. Now, nowadays, we have a lot of effects, a lot of plugins. So if I go to this synthesizer, it's not because the effects are just amazing. But, you know, it's UAD, one of the kings of the effects. So maybe having just two slots, it's not enough. And the fact that it will reset every time that I go to a new one, it's just not good. So maybe on the next version or firmware update, we can get this improvement. Either way, if you want my opinion, the effects are not so great. They're cool, they're fine, but not great. The synthesizer is very, very good, and it sounds great. If you're an experienced user, synth user, you're gonna like it. And if you're a beginner, you're gonna like it even more because it's very simple to use and you get great sounds. Alright, that's it. If you liked all of this and you learned something new, please like and subscribe. This channel is supported by viewers only, so if you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks, you can. Go to the links in the description. You have PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.